over there. So thanks everybody for joining us for the second session in the Vicon Industry Panel webinar series. Today we're hosting a live discussion and Q&A on all things game development. So we have 5 Vicon customer panelists here. Thank you guys so much for making the time and joining us for the conversation. I'm going to give everybody a chance to introduce themselves here in a second, and then Tim will take it away with the conversation. It's similar to our last panel. If you joined us for the virtual production, we're going to be covering about 5 topics, 8 to 10 minutes on each, and then we'll be taking your questions at the end. So the Q&A section is open. You can start submitting those throughout, and I'll be watching. Also, make sure to follow our social channels for information on upcoming webinars. We have one more of these panels, April 21st, covering motion capture education. We have some integration webinars for the life sciences in April, and then we'll be planning more sessions. So all of that will be published on our social channels as soon as it's set. You can register for the April 21st motion capture education panel at vicon.com/events. So let's get started with some introductions. We can start with you, Bart.
Okay, I'm Bart. I'm the lead technical animator at Guerrilla Games, known for the titles of Killzone and Horizon. Currently working on Horizon. I always in our language it's called Horizon 2, but for everybody else it's called Horizon Forbidden West. The team is doing rigging, skinning, runtime animation, state machines, physics, but part of our responsibility is also our own internal Mocap stage. So that's why I'm here.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us. Eydis, we'll start with you. Go next.
Yeah, hi, my name is Eydis. I am a lead animator at a small indie studio called Myrkur Games. We're currently working on a very ambitious project with 2 animators currently, looking to size up in a couple of next years or so. But yeah, I mainly do deal with cinematics.
Exciting. Welcome. Over to Halldór.
Yeah, so I'm working with Eydis at Myrkur Games. We're based in Iceland and developing, as you mentioned, a very ambitious new project, which we hope to share much more about in the coming months. And yes, if you're looking for a job in the industry, we are hiring, so please contact us on that. But I serve as the CEO and game director for the company and project, and I'm incredibly excited to be here with you.
Amazing. We're happy to have you. Ricardo.
Hello, my name is Ricardo Ayasta. I'm the animation technical director here at Larian, and yeah, we're in charge of pretty much everything related to animation, rigging, skinning, but also, like Bart said, we are in charge of our motion capture systems in all of our studios, and yeah, we're working on Baldur's Gate 3 at the moment.
Awesome, welcome. And last but never least, Jerry.
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm Jerry. I'm a technical art director for Electronic Arts on the motion capture department. Yeah, I come from a film background and visual effects. I've only been at EA for 2 years, but it's been a great experience. And basically, in my position, I help the team steer the vision, the technical vision of the team, and provide a technical opinion, make sure that we have the tools we need today and that we will have the tools and the right technology we will need in the future. We currently have 3 stages. One of them you might know, which is our big flagship stage in Vancouver that you probably have seen in many behind the scenes videos on YouTube. We have a new state-of-the-art PCAP facility in LA that we just built like a year and a half ago. And we have a small previous stage in Orlando, Florida as well. So within Capture, we also oversee these stages, their processes, their pipelines, and how can we day-to-day maximize the use of these facilities for each one of our game teams within EA? How can they make the most out of this technology and infrastructure?
Awesome. All right. Well, I will jump off and let you guys get started, but thank you again for making the time. And attendees, feel free to start submitting your questions.
Yeah, thanks, Alicia. Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks for coming. I just say, Joey, you're a little bit quiet. I don't know if you can turn your mic up a smidge.
Yeah, check.
Sorry, we should have that before we started.
Is that much better?
There you go. Perfect.
Yeah? Okay, cool.
Just so we can hear your beautiful voice. Yes, again, thanks for coming. We're really happy to have everybody on board. And for me personally, I'm really excited about this one because I'm a massive gamer. So I've been playing video games my whole life. And I guess seeing motion capture grow alongside the gaming industry, and the way it's become just kind of used everywhere within this space is really exciting for me. I think that was kind of one of the first questions that we started just behind the scenes there to start talking about it. But really, I think one of the key things for me is understanding how you guys are using the technology within your pipeline. So whether that's kind of on set and the capture process through to the retargeting and game engine, how you're feeding that data into the engine. So yeah, I don't know who wants to start. Ricardo, do you want to fill us in on, because I know you've got quite a unique pipeline in terms of processing your capture data on Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah, so basically at Larian, this is the first project we introduced motion capture for gameplay. We did a little bit of motion capture for Divinity Original Sin 2, our previous title, but it was only for character creation. Now we fully integrated motion capture. It's basically, the only things that are not motion captures are basically things that we cannot capture, like, dragons, for example, right? Obviously, but everything else is being captured. Every single line of dialogue is being captured. We have built a full pipeline for this. We have studios. We have Vicon setups in all of our studios around the world. And we're actually building a big facility that is planned maybe for next year. But so yeah, one of the things that made us go with motion capture was really the how easy it is to iterate. Like Larian is a company that iterates a lot. We do a lot of iterations on a lot of things, and one of the reasons we set up a motion system or motion capture systems in every studio is to allow the animators to actually record their data and put it in the game, try it out, and see if it works. If it doesn't work, go back, record some more data, and have this iterative process. And it has shown and it has proven to be something that is very reliable, that we can count on, and it is an important part of our pipeline right now. And yeah, the ability from Vicon to get us data, like skeleton data that we can use, it's also a massive thing. So yeah.
And are you going into engine, or are you going through a DCC like Motion Builder or Maya?
So right now we're going through Maya first. So basically, we build a pipeline so that the animator can capture, can record the motion, then submit everything into Perforce. We have tools to characterize all the Vicon skeleton, put it in Perforce, so they can just get the data from Perforce directly into Maya, retarget it into our characters, and then export it into our game.
Cool. Yeah. And I know Halldór, when we first met and you showed me the teaser, I was just blown away. And that was even before you'd got your Vicon system. I presume things have just gone on leaps and bounds since then.
Yes, for sure. When we first reached out to you, we were just starting out as a studio, and we didn't really know of too many studios that had gone this path before. So we did a lot of research into what kind of solutions we'd be needing for the studio. And it was me and Eydis poring over the internet for days on end, looking into it. And we came out to visit you, and after we heard to kind of what systems and software and hardware you had in store, And of course, we wanted to go along with that. It was a perfect fit for us. We needed to track multiple actors, props, to support facial gear as well, and all the things that kind of combined into the solution for us as a smaller studio to make the production, as effortless and affordable as possible. And since then, the solution has been working for us, of course, really well. It's completely integrated into the game, and making a story-driven game, it's a huge part of our production throughout. If Eydis wants to add anything, feel free to chip in.
It's just been so instrumentally important for us. Like, we are a fairly inexperienced team trying to accomplish something that I would have never imagined possible. So, like, coming in to this industry, not having any like educational background in motion capture or any similar things, it was really great to see when we came out that we could just run the equipment. It wasn't too much effort to learn, and we've just been moving forward since then. And it's really important for us to be able to iterate so fast. It allows us to make mistakes and learn from them, which is crucial.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I think iteration is definitely key. I'm always fascinated visiting kind of studios and seeing the animators putting on the suits and kind of learning the process themselves. I think there used to be this idea that animators were against motion capture. Now it's very much they just get involved and they're a key part of it, both in terms of the capture process and obviously the motion editing.
Absolutely, and
yeah, oh, sorry. It was like a while from the point where we got our equipment to where I actually put it on and tried it on myself. It was like months. And that's when I like really discovered how in depth I could go into so many things and how fast we could iterate. It was, yeah, I don't know why it took me so long.
Yeah, today it's absolutely integral to our production that our animators have access to the studio. And this is, we use the Performance Capture Studio both for, of course, gameplay and cinematic animations. And, there's kind of different ways that these departments or these people use the equipment, what the end purpose is, but they're completely integral in our pipeline. And as you mentioned, the iterative process is different for both. In cinematics, we are, using previs and different stuff. And in gameplay, being able to record 500 different moves and see what really works and what sticks, or even as we have it in-house, we're able to simply, run down to the studio, put on a suit, try something, import it back into the on our computers and try it out in engine, in a matter of like minutes or hours.
Yeah, that's amazing. I know Bart, obviously we've worked together a number of years, probably we're the old men in this school. But I remember kind of coming to Audio Motion and building massive rigs to capture facial with dots, and now obviously HMCs and everything's markerless and real time. Things have really felt like they've moved on.
Yeah, greatly. Yeah, that's true. We came from being a game company where we, part of being Sony is also allows us to make use of the Sony stages in the US, but we're based in Amsterdam, so it's a big travel. It's not always that great. So at Guerrilla, we've also been using other stages. I know Tim from his days at Audio Motion, which was I think our first stages that we used for the Killzone titles. I was there actually when we added the first mocap into Killzone games. And then we progressed. At some point, we got a lot of extra MX40 cameras from the Sony group in San Diego. They had they got a truck full of cameras from Sony ImageWorks from after they made Planet of the Apes, I think, and then they gave 40 cameras to Naughty Dog, and then we at Guerrilla said, yeah, but we also want to have cameras, so we also got like 25 MX40 cameras, and that's how we started off with running our own stage in our office. We're also, our office is in the center of Amsterdam, so space is scarce there. So we had a very small, like 4 or 5 by 5 meters capture volume, but still that was used greatly for initially, indeed, for just for the animators to suit up and act out their stuff. Doing, I don't know, weird stuff. We also had an accent suit at some point. That's actually how we started off. Then we got the MX40 cameras, and we used it heavily for like human in-game animations and having animators suit up. And we did always kept doing our cinematics at the stages in the US, also because the actors that we used lived in the US, so that made sense. But for Horizon 1, so what's that called again? Horizon Frozen Wilds. I hope
We'll
I
call
said
it
this
Horizon 1,
correctly.
it's fine.
We captured a lot of our conversations in-house because there were like lesser tier cinematics, but lots of it. And we found that worked pretty well, especially on the DLC. We captured about 4 hours of conversations in our own stage. And we were really happy with it. And now we just moved buildings and got like a pretty big stage now. And we upgraded our hardware, and also because of the pandemic, we actually captured a lot of our cinematics for the next Horizon at the stage. So I think we're currently using it more for cinematics than we use it for in-game animation, to be honest. But we have hours and hours of conversations and cinematics. That's part of our game.
I thought the quality of the performance capture in Frozen Wilds was just incredible. I was just kind of blown away by it. I think it
actually makes it, if you look well, you can see a big difference between the original Horizon 1 and the DLC, because at the DLC for the conversations, we actually went for full body performance on all conversations. And that's also what we're doing for the current Horizon. But that also adds like hours and hours of
I was going to say that's a big challenge, right?
Yes, especially with our conversations, with have these conversation trees that you can go through. So it's a huge amount of data.
And Jerry, I know you've defined the pipeline, or helped define the pipeline at EA, and then obviously working together at Framestore with the team there on their pipeline. How have you kind of found that transition into games?
Yeah, it's been fun. I mean, with motion capture is fascinating because the underlying technology is always constant and it's always improving. But depending on the business model, it can change so much, right? Like whereas at Framestore, we were more of a boutique, a mocap team, mocap crew, adhering to our shows. Coming into EA is this massive different business model within the company, because I mean EA as a company is also shaped in that way, is also built in that way. So one of the more challenging things that we face as a motion capture business unit within EA is that we're not integrated directly with any game team in particular, right? We are a service department, we're a service unit that it's satellite that needs to service all of these different game teams throughout the year. So, 1 week we're shooting for a sports title, next week we might be shooting for a cinematic piece. So having the ability, the dynamism, but at the same time, the infrastructure and the pipeline to service all these different games, I think that's what's critical within the EA business model. And this team has been doing motion capture for more than 20 years. I want to say maybe 25. So it's great because there's a lot of experience, but there's also a lot of legacy. And legacy is not necessarily good or bad. It's just who you are. It's what defines you, it's your history. So you pay some respect to that, but there comes a point where you also have to ask yourself, are we continuing to do the right thing in the right way? Or is there something new that we have to start bringing into our business to, stay competitive, make sure that we're leveraging the best technology and the best techniques out there? Because as you can imagine, with so many years of motion capture and servicing all these game teams within EA, each production cycle, each year is very similar, right? Like we have the same titles coming in to shoot their next yearly title. Every once in a while, we get these other, like very unique titles in the production cycle. But I want to say that 50%, 60% of the motion capture we shoot is pretty straightforward. Teams coming in for in-game animation, when you see the teams from FIFA or Madden coming into the Vancouver stage every production cycle, it's just like watching the army, right? Like they know exactly what they're doing year after year. And also, I mean, our acquisition team, it's like they're great. I mean, bless them. They're so fine-tuned within them, and they're so exact and precise on what they're doing. They put so much thought, like they care so much about the quality of the data from the first point, like even just from marker placement, right? Like there's so much care for that we acknowledge that every step in the pipeline is critical to get to that quality. But then again, because everything is, you could say, is repetitive, and we're doing the same thing year after year, our pipeline has become stiff as well. And sometimes when teams come with more futuristic ideas, or when they want to leverage things outside of that model, historically we have faced a bit more of resistance, right? Because we can't pivot that quickly, we can't pivot that easily. So some of the work that we've been doing in the past year, and with the new roadmap, is basically allowing for that, right? Like acknowledging that there's a legacy in our business and that we respect that and that it's part of the business, but how can we in a sustainable way fit these new services, fit these new techniques, be a bit more free form and more creative, integrate further with the game teams, right? And that's where the big challenge is right now, and it's exciting times. So yeah, that's kind of like the difference.
Well, I think the big takeaway is the demand for mocap in games has grown exponentially. The games
So
themselves are bigger, obviously. Especially in these big open world games that I think we're probably all familiar with. But likewise with a story-driven game, there's still a ton of high-quality mocap in there. How are you kind of finding cope for that demand? In terms of your pipeline, I know lots have used Motion Builder in the past, and trying to kind of get that data through your pipe as quickly as possible, I think is a really kind of interesting conundrum.
Yeah. Sorry, was that a question for me, or just
yeah? Well, anybody really. It's just I'm just really interested.
I'll give the chance for someone else to answer then.
It's having your own stage as a game developer helps. I mean, we talked about that earlier as well. I mean, basically the turnaround time from shooting up, capturing something, it might not be the cleanest data what you get, but you can test your stuff out with that already, and that turnaround time is like capture it to in-game can be done in like half an hour. And that's a huge benefit for the teams. Sometimes we do a full day of capture, just run a post overnight, and then the next day we give them the Motion Builder FBX files, and they can put that in Motion Builder. We've created a way where we can export to Motion Builder in our own engine format, and that format can also be imported in Maya again. So we still use Motion Builder as the first pass for all mocap, but from there we go straight into the engine, and that format can also be loaded into Maya. But we don't tie our animators to what to use actually. So a lot of animators will be working in Motion Builder. Other animators are maybe more keyframe animators that prefer Maya, but also are able to work with the mocap, of course, in Maya. For cinematics, the same thing. Most of the initial cinematics are made up in so the motion editing is done in Motion Builder story mode. And then that entire story mode is exportable into a sequence in our engine. And from those sequences, we can build Maya scenes again if necessary. And most of the polish and the facial animation is done in Maya. So the end product is always loaded into Maya to do the final polish.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, is anyone going straight into engine? I know, Halldór, is your team using Unreal? Ricardo?
I think I'll defer that to Eydis.
We're not going straight into engine. Well, we are using real time from time to time, just to like adjust actors to the sets and like set up for the day, as well as those things. Sorry. But we usually go from Shogun to Motion Builder, then maybe to Maya, and then into Engine. So we have a lot of middle steps that ideally we are going to try to figure out how to cut out. But currently that's what we have.
I'd say, the biggest part of being able to utilize the real-time tools is exactly as Eydis mentioned, to visualize the 3D space for the motion capture actors, because we can do blockouts of the scenes and we can actually show them on screen, what are they acting against, and that will dampen the green screen effect that actors have where they don't know what they're acting against, what the setting is and what they're really doing, and they're having to try and imagine things. And this also helps us, really realize the space, what they're interacting with and stuff like that.
It's also very crucial for the virtual camera aspect of the process. So we have the scene in Engine ready to go, and then we come in after like a blocking of the camera, and our director gets to go on stage and visualize the environment through an iPad, so that helps a lot.
For us, also being a heavy story-driven game, we kind of have like not two different pipelines, but we don't do, for example, real time or in our game, because we have our own engine. We don't use Unreal. So we decided at the beginning of the project to just go straight to Maya. It was going to be easier. But for example, when we do a recording, we have different types of dialogues. So we have like the dialogue where you talk to another character, and then you have just cinematics where you have multiple characters moving around in an area. For the dialogues, for example, we record the voice actors at the same time as we record the voice and the data of the body at the same time. So for that, we build special rooms with our partners that are doing the VO recordings. So basically, the actors come in, we suit them up, we put them in the booth, and they act their lines basically. And we do this for every single character that talks in the game. So it is a lot.
Wow.
It is a lot of data that we're handling right now. But I think we have a really good pipeline now. So, for example, the moment that we record, everything goes into our VO pipeline and the data gets processed, and then everything gets cut automatically and put in the game. So basically, the moment when we record, I think it's a day or two until we get everything in the game. So it's it's very straightforward.
But you're using timecode presumably to sync the audio and the body and the face.
There's no other way.
Yeah, it's so important, right?
There's no other way. Yeah, but it took us a while. I mean, like we did a bunch of tests in the booths. So we kind of find the right approach because this was one of the decisions we made at the beginning of the project, right? I mean, if anybody here has played Divinity Original Sin 2, they know that how many dialogues we have, right? I mean, like Act 1 probably in Baldur's Gate 3 probably is the size of a full game. So we wanted to have really good characters in your dialogues. We wanted the characters to feel alive, and the only way to do that is basically to record the actor together with the voice, and then things started shaping up in what the pipeline we have right now.
That's amazing. I guess the question is what's allowed you to do that? I know, Bart, you mentioned that you could switch between Horizon and then the DLC and kind of focus more on the kind of dialogue cutscenes.
Yes.
But, in the past, it's been very common. You just use like stock animation, or you use the same loops to drive those performances. What kind of changed for you?
Just the disconnect that players of the game don't really make a difference, whether it's a cinematic or a conversation. So in our heads, there is a different type of tier involved with that. But then you see how people react on it when post-based and with some like overriding gestures. That's all fun, but it doesn't hold up to the actual cinematic. So if you go from a cinematic straight into a conversation, or there's just a few frames in between, it feels wrong. So we needed to up the quality of the conversation. So that's why we started doing full performance. Yeah, we do the same. Our live performance, we always capture in a live motion builder file that we also so apart from the video reference, we have like one reference of that motion builder file with the live feed of the stage that we can use in our motion edits and everything. So that's the useful, and we're experimenting actually hooking it up to our engine, because that would be even better. And would solve some steps in the process of creating environments for motion builder from our game. We're looking into it, but it's not fully done yet. So it's more like a little bit of a research. Yeah, we also don't use Unreal, so we can't make use of that. So everything we want, we have to create ourselves with, and then we're still small fish compared to the amount of users and developers on Unreal. Takes us a bit of time, but we're getting there.
Yeah, same here. Like we're on the same boat.
And I guess the obviously if you're a single actor in a VO booth, you're socially distanced. But how have you managed to cope with the pandemic and being being socially distanced that way? It must be so hard. I mean, presumably, the game date is the game date, and then you've got to handle this kind of pandemic in the background.
Yeah, the pandemic kind of hit us hard on that regard, because basically it was not just the recording, right? I mean, the actors couldn't get out of their houses.
Yes.
So I mean, like, even if we can capture them, I mean, the actor availability was non-existent. So yeah, on that regard, all of the VO pipeline went to a stop, on at least the recordings, until because we do most of our actors are in the UK. So the moment that the UK started, like giving more relaxing the lockdown, then we started the recordings. But yeah, for gameplay, at least we had to rely on like different systems to record mocap for gameplay, like like XSense or things like this. But yeah, the pandemic kind of. I mean, I think everybody, right? Hit us hard in some sort, some way or another.
We were planning on doing full performance, and we started off with that, and then pandemic hit, and our talent lives in the US, and was indeed not allowed to go outside of their house anymore. So we ended up having to split it. So the body performance is done in our own internal stage, and the facial performance is done at the actor's home. So we have head-mounted cams that we send around that they wear, and our dialogue director is working from home, directing them in LA, or recording the facial video and audio remotely. But even there, it misses. The actors miss acting against each other. So even if you do dialogue recording, you miss the counter acting that you can do. Because that doesn't work in that setup, of course. So yeah. Well,
we didn't really. Yeah, we didn't really get hit too hard since we didn't really have any capture dates going until September this year.
Yeah.
But we used the time to previs a lot, but then we had to move offices. So the space was full of stuff for the past few months, which obviously sets our production schedule behind. Yeah. But yeah, cases have been really calm here. So we've been lucky.
Yeah, you're lucky. Yeah, we need to ship our game at a unannounced time somewhere this year. So basically, there's no way around pandemics for us.
I'm sure people understand. The public will understand.
I can see the results. It's looking good. So for us, it helps. We were not completely locked here in Holland. So having Dutch talent on our own stage and having the directors just basically come down from their desk to direct and then go back to their desk instead of traveling all over the world was not a bad thing. And we were also still possible to capture some full performance at the stage of GBK in Sweden, because they had less of a lockdown.
Right.
just like Holland, as it was not doable there, but we could never get our American talents over. So that was the one thing that we couldn't do. So the voices will be done by actors that were not in the mocap suits for us. Unfortunately, because that would be even better, but it's just not feasible at the moment.
How's the A Cape, Jerry? I know the LA stage was closed for a while, but are you guys back up and running now?
Ish, yeah. Like last year around 2020, well, I mean, obviously 2020, about around March, EA issued, a company-wide kind of like lockdown, like everyone go home, work from home. Also a travel ban, like we weren't allowed to travel like domestically or internationally. So that hit us hard, but I mean, us and also our teams, right? Like our game teams looking forward to like shoot all of this stuff that was already scheduled. And for the first 3 months, like it was just like no go on nothing. Like there was not even a tiny chance of like going to the stage for anything or any facility. So yeah, like it was dark for us in terms of like data acquisition, but it was also opportunities, right? Like opportunities for some of these teams to take a breath first, focus on how to pivot and how to come up with a robust strategy to allow for remote production. So with like several different people within the department put together a really, really strong plan that then was presented to, whatever layer of executive board within EA to kind of like pitch the idea of like, hey, we need to go back and shoot, right? With the whatever, safety procedures or safe procedures that they needed. And slowly that started like happening around August. Vancouver was the first stage that slowly could go back into production. So we had to enable our stages with all kinds of equipment for remote production. So just something as trivial as how do we stream a live shoot to the internet, right? Like how do we allow people to see what's happening on the shoot, both from a video perspective, from an audio perspective, and also can we allow, like, could we do real-time visualization over the network, right? So all of these opportunities presented to us, and that's when my team like me and other technical artists started working towards, hey, what would a remote mocap viewer look like, right? Like how can we host literally a multiplayer game where we're streaming the live performance and people can just like log in from their houses and watch the performance, right? Like, so we worked on that, and we got to a pretty good stage, pretty good prototype of that. But as we slowly started like getting better in our remote technology, like it also started like getting a bit easier to just like go back to the stage. So there was like this point of like, that's great, but maybe we don't need it as much as we thought we needed like 2 months ago. But it was definitely a wake up call in terms of like, even without COVID, there's nothing stopping us from making this a norm with our production. Like, what if people don't have to travel around the world to attend a shoot anymore? What if we can, connect multiple stages through like a network session and leverage capture space around the world in a single session? Like all these crazy ideas that now are part of like our future tech roadmap that without a, like a wake up call like COVID, we probably wouldn't have thought of. And, going back to the question also, LA is just in the, going through the process of reopening. Like the past month, I've been going there like once a week to like help with some of the activities to get the stage back up and running. Yeah, I hope that in the next month, 2 months, we can be back in business or business as usual. It won't be 100%, but we're slowly getting there.
There's a really good question from Shane in the chat, who says, is there any kind of these techniques that you've adopted due to COVID that you're going to keep going? And obviously remote session viewing and remote directing is a great one. Absolutely.
And even just the fact that now we can literally live stream our productions, right? Like we have so many cameras on stage for our own video reference system that we've been using for years. That now we're able to, encode through a teradeck tracks and like actually being streaming that on over IP, and anyone can just connect to a high resolution, high quality, high frame rate feed of that, and they can monitor their shoots like from anywhere they are, right? So whether it's an animation director, whether it's a DOP, whether it's like anyone, it really allowed us to blur those lines between the physical barriers and the virtual barriers. So yeah, some of this stuff is here to stay.
Cool. Has anyone else got anything they're going to keep after the pandemic's hopefully gone?
I don't know. It's just, it's really annoying to have to wear rubber gloves and face masks and have actors act against each other with face masks on. And it's all that stuff is really not fun. And I hope it just goes. And I don't think we're ever going to make that a practice. But yeah, I think one of the things we had as well is that, okay, you have a stage, but we really need to be careful. Normally you send people over, it doesn't matter how many people are on the stage, it's all fine. So you can have like a director and a technical animator and maybe somebody that's particularly interested in that particular shot and a producer. And at this point in time, that cannot be true, right? So we need to be really accurate on who do you want to have on the stage. But I think actually that's also really good. So as far as I'm concerned, that we hopefully will stick to that as well. So we don't allow too many people on the stage because it disrupts and it has too many opinions as always, so sort of you get more focus when you do it like this. And indeed what Jerry was saying, like having live feeds allows other people to still watch, and if they want to put in their dime, they can type it into the chat, and then at the appropriate time you can look at it. So I think those type of things might actually be stuff that we keep and not throw away. Yeah. But then again, our stage is in the building. So once 400 people are in that building, I really probably can't control how many people will turn up randomly on the stage every once in a while. So you never know how that works, but hopefully we'll keep that a little bit.
I would say I'm conscious of the time, so I'll try and fire through some of these questions. But I was really interested to gauge how much real time you guys are using. I know Eydis, you mentioned that you kind of do it in certain shots or certain scenes. What's the kind of thinking behind it, and kind of would you look to use it more? I know kind of this idea of using an LED wall maybe to really put the actors within the scene, kind of steal from the virtual production crowd.
I don't think we're going to be using LED walls, at least not for this project. Maybe we'll find some very clever uses for it later on, maybe game 2 or something like that. But as for real time, I mentioned earlier we use the virtual camera with like a GoPro straight into our virtual world. And we also use it to position characters to like the stage. So if they're going to be interacting with something, like we have previous like a very tough scene with lots of interactions and lots of characters, we would ideally set up the stage beforehand and then get the actors in and like get them to position themselves to the environment and get to know it themselves. So that's like our main use for real time. We haven't ventured further into it yet, but we haven't even started shooting yet, so maybe.
Yeah, that's cool though, using it for blocking and building your scene out. I think that's a really powerful way of utilizing real time.
But that's great. Yeah, you need to actually, but a lot of stuff, prop interaction, putting things on desks, sitting down on chairs, talking to each other at a bar, hanging on a window. You have to rebuild those things like scarcely, because else they block too many markers. But having the real environment there in the second feed helps a lot. And for us, like real time,
it's like positioning and repositioning.
But like having it real time in engine would help us even more, I think. So that's why we're so keen on doing that, because it's fine to have like a real time viz in motion builder, but getting it in the engine would allow us to also, like when you do cinematics or cinematography, it's really important to know like where's the light exactly coming from you have these lucky accidents that we will never see in Motion Builder, but we can see when we do this live feed in our engine, because we can change the time of day. There's like vegetation that you can do, like a soft in the foreground, and so live cameras and live action in the actual game will give us a bit more artistic freedom.
Yeah, when it comes
where
to
place
like
cameras.
filmography, yeah.
Exactly. So we're looking. We're really keen on getting that as well, because that's in Motion Builder, that's less. We have like a virtual camera in Motion Builder, so we can see the camera shots and use that as well. But having that in game would be better, I think. We would also be able to record those positions straight in the game by just saying like capture this in game. So that would also
that's actually what we do with a virtual camera. So once we've done with the PCAP and we've imported it into the engine, this is how the art director actually goes into it. He actually has a camera that's streaming the data straight into Unreal Engine, and he's able to visualize the lighting and the actors, and not just create blocks of characters, but like the actual shaders and everything. And that definitely, like for achieving the feel and the kind of understanding the entire environment and the setting, it's super important to have that. So it's been of great use to us.
Yeah, that's actually the one link that works for us already. So camera we can do in the game as well, but we don't have a very handheld camera feel to our cameras. They're very static, and so it doesn't make much sense. But it is where we started off with. Let's put it that way. So that bit works, and now currently we're trying to also live link skeletons in our engine, and then we can basically see it on characters with with perfect deformation skinning on top of them. That's all of that stuff that you don't get in Motion Builder, basically.
Cool. And Ricardo, you mentioned that you're using your own engine for Baldur's Gate 3. What's do you have a pipeline, or are you reliant on?
I mean, yeah, if our cinematic director is actually listening to this, he's probably gonna poke me tomorrow. It's like, hey, we need this too. So we had plans at some point, but I mean, I didn't have the manpower to actually implement any of this. But I mean, it is planned. I mean, we discussed it at some point. I know the benefits of it. So I understand the need, and what you guys are saying makes sense completely for cinematics. There is one thing also that for us, for example, there are a lot of dialogues that are not specific to a spot in the world. So sometimes it's harder to actually previous, because you don't know. I mean, like for example, if you have a dialogue, the character depends, the position of the cameras depend when the character is actually entering the trigger. So on that regard, sometimes it's a little bit harder for us. But yeah, for full cinematics where we have full control of the characters, yeah, this is something that will I mean, the cinematic director probably will like. And as Bart said, I will just go straight to our engine. So it's gonna be much better.
Yeah, I know it's hard. I think probably on the Vicon side, where we recognize that there are lots of custom engines, and we try and make our data stream as easy to kind of tie up or to connect to your game engines.
I remember there was a sort of API for this, no?
Yeah.
I don't know what the we never investigated further, so I don't know what the status of that API is right now.
We're here to help anyway. I mean, there's a question in the chat about our Unreal plugin. Obviously, every new version of Unreal we're looking to support as quickly as possible, and the 4.26 plugin's been out for a while now, and I've been using it here at home and in the office. So for those in the chat looking to use Unreal, that pipeline's there. The same with Unity, and yeah, I know, Jerry, it's an ongoing question about Frostbite and getting Vicon streaming into Frostbite. We'll leave that alone.
Yeah, well, I mean, joking aside, it might be closer than we think. There's been, I mean, it is definitely something that it's there's demand for it, right? Like, let's put it that way. You know, it's just natural. I mean, when you see what Epic Games are doing with Unreal Engine, and you know, everyone in the company is like, hey, they're doing this, why can't we just do that, right? It's like we want
we had the
that
same
here.
thing.
Exactly, right? It's
Yeah.
like, so then, you look around to the engineering team and they're like, well, don't look at me. Like, here are my user stories, here are my themes, here are my epics. Like, this is what we're working on. So, and the Frostbite development team, I mean, they do great work, but it's also very small, right? And when you go again back to the business model that I was like telling you earlier, it's similar, right? Like Frostbite, like game teams have the option, right? Like, do we want to use Frostbite or do you want to use other engine? And historically there was more push to use Frostbite, but I don't think that's the case anymore. But then, the engineering Frostbite team can only service so many game teams at the same time, right? Because of so many custom requests. So obviously there's a big backlog about what is more important, right? Like certain in-game runtime features, or, taking care of like the cinematics pipeline and all of that. So I think in the last years we've gained traction in that particular regard, but also one thing we've identified within our capture department, that we can't just rely on Frostbite 100%, right? Like one thing, yes, it's the pipeline where we need to take things into the engine for persistence, for actual data that it's going into the game. But then there's a conversation to be said about, well, what about the techniques and services that we could just build within capture that are not going to persist into the game itself, right? Like visualization, previs, stuff like that not necessarily has to persist. That's where we have a bit more of a gray area and I guess sandbox to play around with other engine technology as well. So that's where it gets really exciting. And going back to the question of like how important is real time, I think it is important, right? Absolutely, but it does depend on what game we're working on and what type of shoot we're doing. I think historically as well, like it became real time, just became kind of like we just took it for granted, right? It became so easy to just like stream a skeleton into Motion Builder and characterize it and just like see it walking around, that it was just taken for granted. And with Shogun Live as well, like how good the real-time visualization has gotten into Shogun, and the retargeting in Shogun is like, there's sometimes there's not even a need to spin up Motion Builder or spin up an engine. Like you can just use Shogun as your real-time engine. Right, there's shoots that are only focused on the quality of data, and animation directors are able to get what they need just from looking at live. That is enough. But yes, we do have cinematic shoots where we tend to leverage more the game engine technology, our virtual cinematography platform that we built also, on top of Motion Builder and in engine. And as I mentioned previously, with COVID, there's been this increased demand of like, hey, how do we do remote real-time visualization? And for that, we need to leverage the engine, right? So it is important.
And I didn't pay you to say that about Shogun, if anyone's wondering.
Oh no, absolutely. Like, but I think
I'll pay you in beer, but I can't see it. It's impossible.
But it's gotten that good. Like it also goes back to your compromise with, or your commitment, I think, with the the M&A industry. And like I can imagine as Vicon, like you get like as an example, like, because I've been there, right? Like I've pestered you in the past for, hey, what about the Motion Builder 2017 plugin? Like when 2017 was like the new thing, right? You were able to take a bit of that now back into your house and be like, well, if we need to do this like visualization and accurate retargeting, we can maybe do that in live, right? Like maybe we don't need to rely on another platform to do that. So I think that's been also pivotal for and going into the future, and also allowing for the new generations of content creation, right? Like if we think of like the smaller studios that are looking into building their pipelines and making games or making cool stuff, it's like, I don't even need to have a tech stack of 3 different platforms or 3 different software platforms where I can actually just focus on live, right? Like it also goes back to just the sustainability of the business and in the industry. So yeah, I didn't get paid for that.
Before I forget, we're going to put a quick poll out to see what what technologies everyone's using. So I will launch that. There we go. And yeah, I think we're kind of running short on time. I'm really keen to get some questions from our audience. I've actually been answering a couple as we've gone along, but if anyone's got any questions they'd like to add, in the meantime, we can pander to Andy Ray and answer his question, which is, what's the craziest mocap scene you've ever witnessed live? And I'm not going to say my one.
No, we're not going to say
Why would you
either.
say that?
Because it's just, I have nightmares about it.
Oh, really?
No, I'm just curious.
You're going to tease us with that and you're not going to tell us? That's,
You
that's
can
so
tease
unfair.
us and not share it.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
game wasn't released. I don't even know if I'm allowed to talk about it.
Oh, okay.
The motorbike.
Oh, okay.
The first
Right.
rule of not sharing is not saying shit like that.
Yeah, it was about motorbike gangs, and I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
Scarred me.
I don't know. I remember one. I don't know if you were still at Audio Motion then, Tim. I don't think so. But at the very start of Horizon 1, it's not maybe the craziest, but it was one of the ones that left like an impression on me, is that we had we did like very early on in the production. We went to Audio Motion. We had a shoot with parkour people in the studio, and we had this 17-year-old girl that at like I think 3 months before that just walked into somewhere in London into a place where they practice parkour, and it was like all guys there, and then this 17-year-old girl walks in and basically does parkour in such an elegant way that you have never seen it. And of course we have Aloy is a girl, and we have that type of movement. So we hired her. She had to come in with somebody to guide her because she was so young. And then we had both the male and the girl do parkour moves in the studio in Audio Motion. And the difference between like the elegance that you can get from a female actor doing that, there was a couple of like really like very high on the muscles type of moves that she couldn't do, but everything else you could see like the male sort of really using her muscles doing the stuff that we asked him to do, and then the girl doing it in like not just but like in an elegant way. And it was sort of like, I remember after that shoot we were just like with our animation directors just go like high-fiving, like this is amazing stuff that we captured today, because we would never have thought, because we couldn't find, there was not much reference, but just having a real performer do this for us and actually having all that data to get back to later on. And I mean, most of it was just looked at, not even actually added into the game at all, but was as a reference for the animators to look at and to have in the back of your scene when you animate it. That was extremely useful and it was really cool. I think so. It's not that crazy. I think maybe the craziest from the last project was when I walked into the mocap room in the old building still, and like 3 animators were there with a beanbag, acting out Aloy jumping on a mount and driving it around or something. And I walked in, it was just like chaos all together, but so much fun they had. And I think that actually that stuff got in the game at some point. But that was cool. That's nice to have that freedom as a game team to just suit up, do stuff, do weird. Just can we use the mocap studio where you just walk in, you just marker it up and say you press this button when you want to capture, and they just go ahead and do it. And then at some point you walk back in and you see how much fun they are having with the 3 of them, and getting really cool stuff as well.
It's like kids in a sweet shop.
Yeah, I used to be lead animator. I suited up all the time. I love that.
Yeah,
I stopped animating at some point because it's just too much effort to animate a humanoid, and just suiting up, it works well.
I guess Myrkur's still got it all to come. You've got probably some crazy shoots lined up, but in your experimenting, you must have had some fun.
Sorry, which one?
Sorry, I was just saying, because you're not really in production yet, you must have some.
We
got it all
us.
to look forward to.
Oh, right. I didn't hear the name, so we.
Sorry, it's my bad pronunciation.
I think we haven't had like really any crazy mocap scenes yet. We've had a couple of like stunt heavy scenes that we can show. but I think mostly we have just some funny or weird stories to tell from. I think once we got, it's not like a scene, but we got a client in to do like a dance scene or something. So we had a bunch of like really artsy types on stage and some people just like watching. And I just couldn't get the equipment going, and I retargeted and calibrated the whole space like 5 times or something, when I noticed a bunch of like red blobs on the screen to the side. So it was like a woman wearing a reflective jacket with reflective pants. We just had to loan her some clothes, and like we went on and tried to calibrate again, and then like we still had some issues, like smaller ones, and we tried to shoot with it. I'm like, I'm not gonna get it any better today. And then I noticed she also had a reflective bag sitting inside the capture volume. So that was a weird
Perfect
day.
for Mocap.
Never seen clothes like that before. So
just track the blob.
Yeah, exactly. One giant
this
blob.
other time, it's like I wasn't even there, but I think some of the people in the office had some fun, started up the capture volume, and I just came back the other day, and there were like videos of people acting like horses with people on top.
With people,
like running around the office, acting like fools. My computer full of reference videos of that.
We had like 4 actors on a desk chair acting out a spider at some point. That was also fun.
Yeah, I did like a huge stone gorilla this one time. That was weird.
That's brilliant. Yes, if anyone's got any more questions, apart from what happened on that shoot, then let us know. I think, obviously the poll's a bit biased because it's a bike moment.
It's not fair.
Should have invited more abstract users.
You got some great market share there.
I'm sure people are using Lightstorm.
Of course they are.
Yeah.
That's a joke.
Where is keyframe here?
I think for us on the EA side, probably the most exciting or the craziest shoots usually are those of sports, right? It's just because it's so physical, right? Like I remember the first time I walked into the capture stage in Vancouver, there was a whole ice rink built within the capture space for NHL. And I remember seeing like these like super physical sports people like skating on the ice rink and like just playing hockey. That was just, to me, that was just next level. Like I hadn't experienced mocap at that level before, maybe just one time before. And it was like, wow, like it does truly pay to have this level of infrastructure, because you can just build anything you want. And it's the same with Madden, like just seeing these like football players like hitting the brains out of each other. Or same with FIFA, like you can see, I think we've done like 8, maybe 10, maybe even 12 people at the same time, like just playing footy. And it's great, like, because they can go all out on the space. And to me, that's like some of the next level stuff I've seen. And if it's not sports, it's probably stunt. Like anytime I've been part of like big stunt shoots, like for me back at Framestore, like being part of the Doctor Strange mocap stunt shoots was amazing. Like just seeing these riggers do all their wire work and having the chance to mocap that was amazing. And on the LA stage, we also have like stunts, like stunt pick point and a whole travel system as well on the PCAP stage that allows for us to do very complex cinematic stunt fight sequences. So I think whenever it gets like that, it's really exciting just to see all of the action.
Yeah, I think for me it's animals as well. I don't know how much capture you've done with animals, but we had a horse at Audio Motion that it was actually an outdoor shoot. All the cameras, I think they were MX or F series even, it was a long time ago. And then it started to rain, and then everyone's like, oh no, it's fine, it's just a little bit of rain. And then all of a sudden the gutters just kind of opened and all the cameras got covered in water. And the poor horse and the riders, what's going on? And I think the cameras still work. We had to go and dry them out, but they were still, give it a couple of days and they were good to go.
I've seen weird people experimenting with markered cats walking around in. It's pretty cool though what you could do. I mean, we feel that that all the creatures need to be hand keyed,
Yeah.
but I don't necessarily. I don't know. It's possible. I mean, you can use mocap as a base for creatures as well. I think especially for the bipeds, but I don't know. There's still an art in keyframing that you probably don't want to miss out on a little bit. I think so. Yeah, unless you can really get like a dinosaur and marker it up. Maybe we would go for that approach, but at the moment that's all hand keying.
I think your animators did an amazing job on all those creatures.
Yeah, it's a big effort, but we have really good animators for it. So yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay, well, I think that's us for time. I appreciate you guys all giving up your time. I know everyone's busy, either in production or pre-production. So I just want to say thank you personally for coming in and joining this webinar. I really appreciate your time. I don't know if Alicia will come back on. I guess I have.
What were you going to say?
No, I was looking at questions, but there's no more questions to cover.
Yeah, I think if anybody else has questions, you can tweet us at Vicon or go over to the live stream and put your questions in there and I can answer. But thank you guys so much for joining us. The recording of this will be in every registration's inbox tomorrow. So feel free to share. And like I said, check out our social channels to find out more about upcoming events.
Yeah, and likewise, if anyone's got any questions, feel free to email me. And I saw the one about the live link plugin. Any kind of questions about that, pipelines and workflows. Obviously, we're hard at work on Shogun 1.6 and kind of improving the retargeting tools and adding some features there. The funny one, we've added BVH back, so for all those BVH lovers, who apparently there are some people out there, they'll be happy. But yeah. All right, brilliant. Thanks so much, guys. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.